Every year, thousands of people die on organ transplant lists waiting for whenever their name is called for needing a new heart, a new kidney, a new liver, etc. But what if your doctor could print you a new organ in a matter of a day? Is it right? Is it ethical? Let's find out. You may be saying, Sal, what are you talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is bioprinting human organs. Now, what is bioprinting human organs? Well, it's a technology that combines 3D printing and human cells. It allows scientists to create human tissue and organs like kidneys, hearts, and livers. Instead of waiting for a doctor to wait for your organ to become available on a human transplant list, and that could be a whole process on its own. It could take several days, several months, several years for someone to get an organ that they need. I don't know if anyone watching has ever watched any TV shows, doctor shows specifically. They have several episodes around this issue because it is a big issue in society. So obviously 3D printing organs that could be done within a day, and you can get your organ taken out and put in a new one that's printed, seems to be a great benefit. It seems to be something that could save time, it could save lives even. But is it ethical? Is combining this new technology of 3D printing and human cells together, is that an ethical question? Well, today we'll be using Immanuel Kant, we'll be using John Stuart Mill, and we'll be using Aristotle, as well as my personal opinion on whether or not bioprinting human organs is ethical. The first philosopher we'll be discussing today is John Stuart Mill. Mill is an English philosopher, well known for his writings on utilitarianism, as well as his greatest happiness principle, which we'll be using today to decipher whether Mills would say bioprinting organs is unethical or ethical. The way that John Stuart Mill would describe his greatest happiness principle is whichever action produces the greatest happiness for the greatest number. So for our topic today, bioprinting organs, we have to compare it against something or what's happening now. So currently we have the traditional organ transplant list where people would be on a waiting list for however long it may be till someone is able to donate them that organ that the person is looking for. This process is a very long process that could take months, days, years, and many people unfortunately die waiting for that potential life-saving organ that they just don't get. Now, bioprinting would fix this issue because it would print a organ using human tissue from another person that donates it to the printer, and the printer uses that same tissue to print out an organ that's usable for that person, so that they no longer have to wait for an organ to be available through the transplant waiting list. Now, we're going to assume that this new technology is used fairly and accordingly. We're going to assume that, and giving Mill's greatest happiness principle, I would say, and I think many would agree, that bioprinting organisms produces more happiness than the alternative, which is our current waiting for transplants on the organ list. It produces more happiness than suffering compared to the other option, the alternative. So under Mills, I would say that bioprinting organs is ethical. The second philosopher we're speaking of today is Immanuel Kant. Now, Immanuel Kant is quite different from Mills. He sets out to create a quote-unquote universal law for moralism or for ethics. And he will basically, I would describe it as, act only on rules you could want everyone to follow universally. So that's a key idea, a key principle when it comes to Kant. So for starters, when it comes to bioprinting organs, we need to see the maxim when it comes to Kant. So I would describe our maxim as, it is acceptable to create human organs using technology to save lives. Now we have to universalize it. So what would it be if everyone were to do this? Well, for it to be ethical in that sense, it has to respect human dignity. It has to treat people as human beings and not use them as tools, and as well has to be helpful and not exploitative. Now, how ways for it to be unethical? Well, humans would have to be treated as tools. It has to be used as a commodity. So using organs as a commodity would make bioprinting organs unethical, and as well exploit people for cells or for profit. Now, we're going to assume, again, as I mentioned earlier, that bioprinting organs is solely used to benefit or to help those in need who are struggling and need an organ replaced. We're assuming that solely. So, given that that is how we're using bioprinting organ, using Kant's FUL, I believe Kant would say that bioprinting organs would be ethical. For it to be unethical, I would assume we would have to live in a world where I would assume older people who are more on closer to death would be abused for their cells to be able to feed them into printers. I would say that would be where it would become unethical. But again, given the assumption I made earlier, I say Kant would believe bioprinting organs will be ethical. Now, our final philosopher we will be discussing today will be Aristotle. Aristotle is an ancient Greek philosopher who I would describe his idea of ethics to be one of characteristics over a consequence or over something universal like Kant. I would describe his idea of ethics would be developing good character or virtues, which is the more important word, and as well as anything that achieves human eudaimonia or flourishing. So, with that said, how would Aristotle see bioprinting organs? Well, he would have to first look at virtues that support it. So, what are some virtues that could support bioprinting organs? Well, compassion. Compassion because you're helping save lives. Generosity because you're advancing medicine. You're advancing medical technology that can help thousands, if not millions of people in the future. And practical wisdom, because we're using technology responsibly. And that is a key word when it comes to my idea of Aristotle's ethics. And now, what are some concerns? I would say injustice, unequal access. Does this benefit everybody, or does this benefit only the rich and leave out the poor? That would be a big concern when it comes to bioprinting organs. Now, again, given the assumption I made earlier, we are assuming that everyone is given equal access. Anyone who is of need of an organ can get one, and we are not feeding humans to a machine to drive a profit. So given that assumption, I believe that Aristotle, with bioprinting not being done recklessly, not greedily, and focused on the eudaimonium, the flourishing of human society, he would see bioprinting organs as ethical, as well as Kant and Mills. So let me write that. In conclusion, giving our assumption that bioprinting organs is done in a manner where everyone is given access and no one is being discriminated against and people aren't being abused or used as a tool to create these organs in a 3D printer, I would believe it also is ethical, as well as Mills, Kant, and Aristotle.